Hey everybody, this is Rob Smith coming at you from the Body Project in Eagan, Minnesota. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue talking about scientific spot reduction using the principles of, uh, there's a couple different principles that come into play here, but functional endocrinology is one way we can really ascertain and determine what a person's hormonal profile is like, and then also where they're storing their body fat. Just remember this, where you store your body fat is receptor mediated, meaning there's a direct correlation between the functionality of a specific gland or organ based on where you store your body fat. So yesterday we talked a little bit about estrogen dominance. The estrogen sites are the thighs and the hips. A secondary estrogen site is the side of the cheek. So if you are storing excess body fat in your hips or your thighs, then that's definitely you would have a propensity for estrogen dominance. We know the organ that correlates with that is the liver. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about growth hormone. So the growth hormone site, so when I'm using a caliper and I'm checking sites, what I'm looking for with growth hormone is I'm looking for right at the kneecap and the medial calf. So the kneecap is going to show me more of a short-term growth hormone profile, where the medial calf, if someone's storing excess fat there in that medial calf, that's indicative of growth hormone suppression there. So growth hormone is really dependent on sleep, and so we are going to talk a little bit about sleep and really how to optimize growth hormone production. Growth hormone is produced in the pituitary, and we have to make sure the pituitary is functioning optimally in order to make sure that you're producing the levels of growth hormone that are optimal for physiological function. So growth hormone is widely regarded as our anti-aging hormone. And if you remember, I've actually attached the sheet here, what's the cause of your dysfunction. And so when it comes to growth hormone, foods can certainly play a role, and part of that is blood sugar regulation. If we're not controlling our blood sugar and we're producing too much circulating insulin, that's really going to drop our human growth hormone down. And remember, if you want to look your best, meaning you want to look younger, you want to feel younger, you want to perform younger, we have to optimize the increase of your growth hormone. So if we look at the chart again, we've got our foods, we have immune challenges, chemicals, heavy metals, we have emotional stress, scars, and structurally. So one of the things is, in the past, I've actually had individuals that had some level of head trauma, and so it affected the sphenoid bone. That sphenoid bone actually compressed the pituitary, and the pituitary was not putting out the growth hormone that was optimal. And so sometimes, we'll actually have to adjust the sphenoid bone to ensure we've got optimal production of growth hormone. So using applied kinesiology, we can also determine if there's anything stressing, anything else other than the structural component that might be stressing out the pituitary and decreasing the production of growth hormone. So we're talking about a really important hormone here, particularly if you want to age, shall we say, gracefully, or you want to really participate and feel much younger than you are. So growth hormone plays a role in our body composition, so your lean muscle, your body fat, cellular repair. It's important for recovering from injury and disease. Optimal levels of growth hormone are imperative if you really want to reduce your body fat. Athletic training, that's another big one for growth hormone. That's why so many athletes will actually use performance enhancing drugs, because they obviously enhance their performance. So what we're talking about here is natural growth hormone and natural production here. So your diet, obviously the type of exercise, your intensity to exercise will also help increase growth hormone. And then also making sure you stabilize your blood sugar, or you control blood sugar. So dietary concerns are obviously going to be really big here as well. So as far as evidence-based ways to really increase growth hormone, one of the first things we really need to do is reduce our body fat. And obviously we do that by eating minimally processed whole foods, organic fruits and vegetables, free-range meats. This is going to give us the best opportunity to really increase growth hormone. One of the things too, if we have too high of body fat, we're actually going to not only have impaired growth hormone production, but we're also going to have an increased risk in disease. So we want to keep our body fat low. Another thing that really helps to increase growth hormone production is intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting, there's a number of different ways you can fast intermittently. But one of the ways you can do is have an 8-hour window of eating and then a 16 hours of fasting. Other ways of fasting is you could do a day of caloric intake as little as 500 to 600 calories and do that a couple of times a week. So there's a lot of great literature on intermittent fasting. It's really great for, if we think about, 30% of our daily energy requirements are surrounding our digestion. So if we don't have to use that energy to digest our foods, then we can use that for cellular repair. We can use that to increase our growth hormone. There's so many benefits to fasting intermittently. Another thing is blood sugar regulation. So it's definitely worth looking into. Another thing too is just reducing your current sugar intake. There's so many times today that people that we work with on a regular basis struggle with sugar cravings. And part of that we've already discussed in some of the other videos, but the trace element chromium is really important for blood sugar regulation. Not putting sugar in your mouth, but then also one of the things in terms of supplementation you can do to kind of mitigate those sugar cravings and help stabilize blood sugar is the herb gymnema. One of the things, kind of a trick that I've shared with several clients is if you're at home and you kind of have sugar cravings, one of the things you can do is brush your teeth with a minty toothpaste. That's another thing that can kind of help suppress those cravings. And then obviously fiber can help with that as well. So if we have too much sugar, what happens is that increases our insulin, and if we have too much circulating insulin, that will suppress growth hormone. So be careful with the sweet tooth. And then another thing is we don't want to eat too much before we go to bed. So really want to cut off your eating for sure within 2 hours of sleep, because for a lot of people that can disrupt their sleep. Another thing to increase growth hormone is exercise intensity, particularly doing like a sprinting activity where you're running fast, or you're doing an elliptical fast or cross-country ski. You're doing that in a sprinting manner. Probably the most effective way is interval strength training, metabolic resistance training. So any type of circuit training with strength training tools would be optimal. What happens is you have an increase in lactic acid, and that stimulates the production of growth hormone. So make sure you're doing some type of interval training to really crank up growth hormone levels. Another thing you can do just to kind of help facilitate sleep at night, and this will help foster the production of growth hormone, is taking a melatonin supplement. Melatonin is really important in sleep and also blood sugar and blood pressure regulation. So melatonin is a great supplement. I personally take melatonin every night before I go to bed. And boy, in a very short period of time, I mean, I am ready to fall asleep. So melatonin supplement is actually great for helping facilitate sleep. And then, you know, one of the things that not a lot of people talk about is increasing bright light exposure. So during the day. So you want to get out in natural light as much as possible. And even if the sun isn't shining, just the natural light will help balance your circadian rhythms. And that is important because we want to really, you know, obviously the body's always going to work best in homeostasis. And when we can have balanced circadian levels, what that's really going to help us with is help regulate our sleep at night. So it's tougher, you know, when you live in a place like Minnesota and sometimes it's 20 below, 30 below, but if you can get outside in that bright light, even for a few minutes, it's definitely advantageous. If you don't like the cold, which I don't really love the cold, I actually have a full-length artificial light that I'll actually stand in front of to really mimic the sunlight. So that's another really great strategy to use. And then the other thing is reducing blue light exposure. So blue light exposure would come from, you know, your cell phone, an iPad, a TV. What that does is it stimulates the pineal gland, decreasing your body's production of growth hormones. So you really got to watch your devices at night, and preferably it's like 2 hours before you go to bed. You want to start dimming lights, and better to read from an actual book rather than a device. So blue light exposure really tricks your body into thinking it's daytime. Another thing you can do is wear blue light glasses. So blue light glasses can actually inhibit that stimulation of the pineal gland. So if I'm on an iPad at night, then I always wear my glasses. So really watch your exposure to television as well. And if you are going to watch TV, then if you would look at possibly getting the blue light glasses, wear the glasses while you're watching TV. Another thing is don't consume caffeine too close to bedtime. Caffeine is going to really stimulate your nervous system. You have two branches of the autonomic nervous system. You have your sympathetic, which is your fight or flight. You have your parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And at night, we want to be parasympathetic dominant. So we have to start really calming our body. We have to start really relaxing our body. And we can do that by taking supplements like valerian root, melatonin, and magnesium. Magnesium is excellent for, you know, really relaxing your body. And it's something that I do on a regular basis. And with that particular protocol, the melatonin, the valerian, and the magnesium, sleep like a baby. So another thing we don't want to do is we don't want to, and people aren't going to like me for this one because we have so many clients that love their wine. We got to be really careful with alcohol because that can decrease growth hormone and also decrease your production of melatonin. Oh, but it relaxes me so much at night. Well, so does deep diaphragmatic breathing. So make sure you give that a shot. But at least maybe decrease your consumption too close to bed. And then another thing is we want to optimize our bedroom for, I guess, what I would call sleeping success. So at night, as goofy as it looks and sounds, I definitely wear a sleep mask because there's so many things. We got toothbrush lights, we've got the light from the TV, we've got all these different lights. So any of those lights can stimulate your pineal gland, suppressing growth hormones. So you want, you know, room darkening shades are another thing. So you want the room as dark as possible. And then in terms of sleep temperature, you want to be roughly anywhere from 60 degrees, which I know for a lot of you is very cold. 60 to 67 is kind of that sweet spot for optimal sleep. I'm typically at about 65 is where I like to sleep at. Then the other thing is just kind of what are you doing to prep for sleep? You could take a warm bath. Again, getting back to, reading a book, meditate, anything that's just really going to calm you down. And then lastly, you really want to limit your liquid intake, so you're not getting up multiple times throughout the night to go to the bathroom, which of course will disrupt your sleep. So those are the key strategies to increase your growth hormone. And so if you want to look younger, you want to feel younger, you want to perform younger, then what you want to do is increase your production of growth hormone. So hopefully the tips that I went through today gave you a little bit of insight of how you can accomplish all your physical goals and optimize your health. If you got some value from today's video, if you could like the video, please, and then share it maybe with a friend or family member that you think can benefit as well. So as we move on in the 28 days, I'm going to be discussing various topics. I'm going to start getting into breath work, and if I could really say if there was probably the most important thing that I could talk about in regards to health and fitness, it is how people are respirating. How are you breathing on a regular basis? So I'm going to be talking about that. You're not going to want to miss that one. So until we see each other again, be well.